Hello, welcome to my channel. I'm Tiffany, a retired librarian turned homeschool mom. And in this video, we complete the Song of the Lioness Quartet with the Lioness Rampant. So this is book 4 and the end of the series. So here we have Elena's, she's gotten this scroll in the previous book. She's going off with Coram. She gets this scroll translated, and essentially it tells of this Dominion jewel that's at the roof of the world. And it basically allows the person who wields it to basically control the land of his territory. So it's very, very powerful. So she sets out to go to the top of the world, which is freezing. Again, Elena doesn't actually particularly like cold, but you know, she's going to get this for Jonathan. She's not getting it for herself. She's getting it. She's pretty much getting it to give to Jonathan. Now, in the course of this, she meets Liam Ironarm, who is a Shang dragon. And these are very much almost, they're kind of like the samurai to an extent. So they know a lot of really good hand-to-hand. They know swords. It's very much something they are chosen for as young children and trained from like the age of 4. And they know they don't expect to actually live all that long. He's in his 30s. So they have an affair, but he's not comfortable with magic. So he's not really comfortable with the gift. So they do end up breaking up near the very end of this book before they go back to Tortal. Now, in part of this, they also get into the country of, let me bring up the map. She always has maps in the book. So, accidentally, not sorry. That should be done. In fact, she's not actually showing the full map. Normally she does this, but this other country. Give me the name of it. No. Basically, it's ruled by warlords, and it can be male only. And they have a daughter who's basically the princess. Her mother had been part of these basically tribespeople that were routinely destroyed and hunted down by the rest of, I believe it's Skarna is maybe the name, mispronouncing the name of the country, but fictional country here. So they go there and they run into Thiet, which is the princess. Now her mother committed suicide because Thiet's father had pretty much, I think he declared, he wrote a law that they couldn't gather. Her people couldn't gather more than like 2 or 3, so they couldn't celebrate births or deaths or marriages or anything. And so because he did this and they begged him not to, and he did it anyway, she committed suicide. And she's with her Barium, I believe is the name of the character. I never pronounce her name properly. But basically that's Thiet's guy. She sent her daughter away to the convent. So to basically keep her safe while she committed suicide. And her mother was very, very beautiful. Thiet is very beautiful, but she takes after her father's side. So they run into them, who are with a bunch of orphan children. And essentially, I think they've been attacked by another warlord. They get to another convent, find out her father's been killed by another warring tribe. And so Thiet no longer has any power, and basically he's looking for her to marry her, practically. And yeah, she doesn't want that. So they drop the children off, and then they escape, and Thiet and Miriam go with Coram and Elena and the Shang Dragon to the roof of the world. So they go with them, basically with the intention that Elena is going to take Thiet back to Tortal, where she'll be at least somewhat safe. Now, Elena's plan is to introduce her to Jonathan, because she likes Thiet. And this woman is very intelligent and is raised noble and will not take his nonsense. So, which is the intention. So she's literally, and Thiet had actually been posed as a possible bride to Jonathan, only the queen had dismissed it. So again, that's Elena's intention. They go to the roof of the world. Elena says, I think she's pretty much told by the goddess that you need to go do this. And she magics people asleep. And this is what pisses off Liam. And she has to go and do it again, do it alone, as they do. She's a lone warrior. And that's the type of knight she is. So she goes, she gets the jewel. Obviously, her hands are kind of damaged because it's freezing. And Liam is obviously extremely pissed off. That's how it's broken off, because she has the gift and he's uncomfortable with it. And he's actually teaching her. He teaches her something very specific. It's like, I can't give you the power of a Shang dragon, but he teaches her, it's basically a specific move that she practices over and over again. And this becomes important later in the book. So they go, they head back to the nearest port. And now Elena hates going by sea. She makes her sick. But she's like, I have this sinking feeling we need to go home. And now Coram, who's again part of the tribe, Elena's never communed with the voice of the tribe because again, it's Jonathan. So, but Coram has, and he hasn't been able to reach anybody in a while. So they get to the port city and Raoul shows up. He's out there because there's some sort of diplomatic carrier and they're thinking about trying to get it home. It's actually Raoul who's waiting for her, who's looking for her. They have various people situated along the roads trying to get ready to escort her home because things have not gotten well. This is when you find out Roger's been brought back to life. And of course the king granted everything back because the king had no spine. The queen eventually dies because again she's been weakened by the sleeping sickness and whatever Roger had been doing prior to Lena originally killing him. And she dies, and then Jonathan's father pretty much just stops doing anything and then commits suicide on a hunting expedition. And Jonathan's of course irritated. They just lost his mother. His father just didn't do anything and he just killed himself. And so at this moment they only know like the king died. Jonathan tells her essentially that he committed suicide. So Elena goes home. The Shang Dragon chooses to come with them, as well as bringing Thiet and Barium around. They get to Port Cannon. George comes to meet them. Now, meanwhile, George has been following. There's been a few more problems. You get a little bit of what's going on in the main city, of course. George is fighting another rogue by the name of the Claw, who's trying to kill him, who's been pretty vicious with various different people. It does turn out that he is a young nobleman who Elena had basically defeated and had gotten him kicked out of the school back when they were pages. And he had caused some trouble and got himself disowned. So he's actually, turns out he's a weapon of Alex and Roger's and Delia's, who were, the girl that was hitting on Jonathan earlier, as well as the Princess Jocelyn. And then Alexander, who was kind of friends with Jonathan early on, but had become Roger's squire. They were trying to manipulate things to gain power. So, and that's what they were doing, including with this Princess of the Copper Isles. So, Roger comes back to life and kind of takes over things again, because that's kind of what Roger does. So, they're conspiring going on here. And the Claw is basically a tool of theirs to hurt Elena, to kill George. Obviously, that doesn't happen. At some point, George takes his mother to protect her to Miles. So, Eleni, his mother, ends up living with Miles. They actually get engaged. Yeah, he falls in love. They fall in love. So, they eventually choose to get married. But Elena comes home. George meets her. They get back and go to Miles. And she sees him eventually rest. She's exhausted. Jonathan comes. They talk. They forgive each other. She's like, I swore fealty to you. And it's like, I have this bloody Dominion jewel. She pretty much presents it to him. And he's like, oh dear God. He's like, well, this'll be somewhat helpful. So, and yeah, they become friends again. And then Thiet comes into the room. Now, Elena's cat, her magical cat, had brought her essentially. And it's like, oh, well, that's yeah, they're attracted, and Elena's obviously happy, and George is like, seriously? She's like, what? It's like she won't, basically, Thiet is not a delicate flower. She's very intelligent, and she won't put up with Jonathan. So she won't put up with him being obnoxious and very princely. So, mind you, Jonathan's also grown up a lot. I mean, he's had to rule a country for a while, and his parents have both died, so he's not the naive young man that she left. So, Elena runs into her brother. Now, it's always mentioned that he's looking very ill. And she sees, it's like, my brother's dying. It's like, okay, what the heck is going on? And of course, Roger is there. She's just kind of ignoring him. He's irritating. And they're watching her. Alex is very creepy and very, very obnoxious. He actually tries to kill her at some point in time when she, in the courtyard, when she's kind of interacting with some of the other young knights, and she's easily beating them. But yeah, they put a stop to Alex. But yeah, because he's a bad guy. So things kind of go on. Elena cuts her hair. One of the other things, she'd let it grow down. It's like, no, it's getting in my way. And despite her objections, Jonathan makes her his champion, basically, which is the place that had been originally held by his uncle, Sir Gareth the Elder. And he's starting to gather. The King's Own, which is his private guard, is now run by Raoul. So another friend of his. Gareth the Younger is now very much handling the administration. So her friends have grown up and taken places in court, and this is hers. And they're like, yeah, we knew she was going to do this. Just accept it and stop whining. You need a place within the kingdom. This is what you're going to do. So she accepts it. Not particularly happy, but she accepts it. So, and they're preparing for the coronation. That's the other thing. And of course, Jonathan is slowly falling in love with Thiet. So that's the other thing that's going on. And so he's courting her, which is irritating a lot of the other ladies at the court, including this crazy princess. I think it's Jocelyn is her name. But you also see the conniving going on with Roger. They kill off the Roland, I believe is his actual name, the Claw, because he's just becoming a nuisance. They just kind of get rid of him. And George is fine. So that trouble has kind of died down. But they're preparing at the coronation to attack. And they're bringing in knights from both Delia's, because she's a lady, so she has power. I don't know if she has parents. If her parents are alive, or if she's just kind of running things. But they're bringing in knights from their own castles to help essentially take over. They're committing treason to put Roger on the throne. And that's what their plan is. And oddly enough, Miles actually brings one of the head mages from the Temple of the Gods to look at Throm. And essentially Roger is stealing his magic and corrupting it. And slowly as Roger gets stronger, Throm gets weaker. And they figure this out. And they take Elena's magic from her in order to help. Or no, she can't use it. That's what it is. So now that they take it from her, she takes some of her brothers, along with it's tainted with Roger's. And essentially, she can't, however, in order to stay alive, she can't touch her magic because it will be corrupt. It'll corrupt hers as well. So she's not able to use her gift. So the coronation happens. An earthquake happens, not natural, caused by Roger. Elena realizes this isn't natural. She runs. She's supposed to present the jewel, so she has it. She gives it to George. Or no, she gives it to Coram. And she's like, get this to Jonathan. I can't use it. He can. He has the magic to use this, not me. And so she leaves Coram. George shows up to help him, and they're attacked. And they have to get this jewel to Jonathan. The Shang Dragon shows up. They're eventually able to get the jewel to Jonathan. Elena goes down. She fights off various people. Her cat dies attacking Jocelyn. But of course, it's kind of a godlike thing. So he dies in her arms. And she goes down and fights Alex. and he does nearly defeat her. He's coming to kill her because she's gotten her sword out of her hands, and she uses the kick move that the Shang Dragon, Liam, had taught her, and she kills him. And he dies. And that's the point, she kills him. And then she goes down and finds Roger. And he's opening this like massive gate. His entire point isn't to take over the country, as opposed to what he was actually saying. He's pretty much going to destroy everything. That's his goal. Apparently he wasn't completely dead. He was just kind of waiting around. And Delia basically pressured and dared Thrawn, being arrogant as he was, to bring Roger back to life. So Roger is very, very crazy. And basically the sword that she has was created by him. Basically the pommel was created by him. And she had used it to repair her previous sword. So basically she's fighting this opening of this gate, and basically part of her mind's like, what does he expect you not to do? Let go. She stops fighting. She lets go of the sword. It impales Roger, because he's not expecting this. He's laughing like a madman, and of course he's killed. The gate obviously seals because he can't complete the spell. Jonathan controls everything. She pretty much collapses, and because she's spent. And Barium comes down with, I think, members of the King's Own and a stretcher, and brings her back up to where she's to the throne room, which is a disaster. There's dead people everywhere. There's been a massive battle. There was a massive earthquake. Jonathan was wielding this massive jewel. Not the massive jewel. Very, very powerful thing. So she, in order, and Liam's been killed. He took an arrow for Jonathan, and essentially they breathe. It's like, okay. Jonathan's like, okay, I'm king. I'm survived. Miles was injured, but he's fine. And basically Jonathan said the women saved us. Thiet, Barium, Corm's fiance, who was also there, even Elaine, George's mother, they were able to basically protect me in many ways. So, because I couldn't focus on anything but the jewel. So, they basically saved him as they were being attacked. So, it was kind of disastrous. Delia, I think, is the only one that survives of the group, and he chooses, I'm trying to think if he executes her or not. He might. I can't remember if they actually have the executions. He might imprison her for life. And Roger's kind of harsh on things. You actually, strangely enough, they talk a little bit more about what happened afterwards in the Protector of the Small Quartet, which I'll cover eventually. Because you get a lot more of the personality of Raoul of Golden Lake in that one. It's one of the reasons I enjoy that. That's one of my more enjoyable series, and I will cover it. But it is kind of interesting. So that ends. Elena needs a vacation. So she tells Jonathan, it's like, do you seriously mind if I go spend some time with the Beezar? I need a break. I went to the top of the world. I rescued a princess. I watched my brother die, and killed your cousin again. So I need a break. So she goes back to the Beezar, and she's kind of resting there. Thiet shows up and pretty much asks her, it's like, do you mind if I marry Jonathan? He's kind of asked. She's like, he's not my man. He's yours. We've been over for a while. I don't care. I'm happy for you. Go. And so she does eventually. She goes home, and she becomes engaged to Jonathan. Eleni is also engaged to Miles, so they're going to get married. And then George shows up. So, and now the other thing that happens prior to the coronation is Jonathan comes and talks to George, and basically, this is a royal pardon and a title of baron, and here's Pirate Swoop, which is the lands of a barony. So, and George is like, why the heck are you doing this? Like, you taught me a lot. I don't want to eventually order your death. Just do this. I need you. So George's like, you know what? Fine. The rogue is, I've lost the taste for it. Might as well be landed gentry. So, because eventually Jonathan needs him as a confidential agent. And so it's like, you need to be titled because you need to, your appearance in court has to be not spoken of. It doesn't need to be noticed. So, because you were a baron, that is why I'm giving you a title, and you need lands to support yourself. So that had already happened. So he comes. Elena's planning on going to him anyway, and they've been writing, and he asks her to marry him, and she says yes. So she chooses to marry George. And that's very much the end of her story. She's fallen in love with and chooses to marry and settle down with George. She says, like, we'll venture for a while and then give me a year or two, and then we can settle down with kids, which, as we find out in the next series, that's exactly what they do. So that is the end of this book and the end of the Lioness, the Song of the Lioness. Tamora Pierce is literally, this is her first series. So these are her first books. So if you like what you see, be sure to like and subscribe. I will be covering the Immortals Quartet next. That is actually the first. Wild Magic which is the first book in that series, is the first book I read of Tamora Pierce. So you do not have to necessarily read these things in order, though it helps. Elena does in fact show up quite often in those books, so it's not actually necessary. So be sure to like and subscribe to this channel. Besides these book series, I've done several. I've already done Tamora Pierce's Circle Opens and Circle of Magic Quartet, as well as the Will of the Empress. I have not covered Battle Magic or Melting Stones yet. We may. I do in fact own those books. So I'm probably not, this would be down the road. I don't particularly like the Daughter of the Lioness 2 books. I don't own them. So I may cover them at a later date. They're not really on my list. I will eventually cover the Protector of the Small, as well as the Terrier books, because I own all of those. And I don't know if I'm going to cover her brand new series, because I don't know if she's going to finish it. She's kind of disappeared, at least as of this shooting. So this is February of 2022. Every time I check her website, it's not been touched very much. So we will see. I cover a variety of others. I've done some other series. I do children's fiction books. I do standalone books. I do various films. Do a bunch of stuff. I do some travel stuff. We'll be doing more of that as things go along. I also do some various, as I said, various films, and we'll be doing some secular homeschooling stuff. As time goes on, my daughter will be 3. By the time you guys see this, she'll be actually closer to 3.5, so we'll be getting into the preschool stuff. That stuff is it's kind of in the works. My daughter's 2.5 as of this shooting. So we're not quite there yet, though I will cover some stuff as things go on. So again, like and subscribe. Leave a positive comment if you have one. Thank you.